Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Indie Sooner YouTube channel. It's your boy JP, and we got the JP and Trav show going on tonight with the homie Trav down below me. He's not live tonight, but Trav, how we doing?
I'm well. I'm well. This is I'm keeping an eye on the storms in the area. Appreciate the initial concern from Jackson in the comments. But keeping an eye on the storms in the area, and yeah, my laptop's over at the office today, and I was out running all kinds of stuff, and I'm doing this from the house, in case I got to take cover, or unless I got to go out and check out a tornado off the back porch, as us Oklahomans do.
Absolutely. And hey, we got today on the podcast, we got my good friend Rob Reynolds from the DGD podcast. I went on there a little bit ago, earlier this year, before they won the national championship, and got to talk with him, his buddy Juan, who used to play for the Georgia Bulldogs as well as wide receiver. So it was a great time, and glad to finally get you on, buddy. How you doing?
I am doing well. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, that finally nice to finish that home and home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So first off, Rob, I'm going to give you the floor since you're our guest. Talk just a little bit about your background, where you grew up, how you got into being a Georgia fan. What kind of led you to start the DGD podcast, anything like that.
Oh yeah, man. No, thank you. No, I mean, for me, I was just born and raised in North Carolina. About 2007, I want to say, is when I became a Georgia fan. I didn't really grow up having a lot of you ain't got ESPN Plus and all this stuff in it, back then. So once they were able to get on ESPN, was when it really caught my eye. Outside of the 3:30 SEC games, No Sean and Stafford, AJ Green, and those folks kind of just like drugged me in and just kept riding it out, man. And as far as the podcast itself, man, it was just one of these things where I like talking about recruiting. I like talking about the current state of the team, all this stuff. So I just wanted to encompass it and, kind of just generate content. Just so happened I was fortunate enough to talk with Juan, co-host. Obviously sit there, had him on the show, turned out to be a co-host situation. And, here we are. So now we're just talking about SEC. We talk about obviously Georgia, but SEC hot topics. I know when you came on, JP, we were talking about the news about Texas, Oklahoma joining. So it was kind of one of those last minute things. But other than that, there was just Georgia talking Georgia, shitting on Florida, Auburn, those guys. You know what I mean? Same old, same old.
Absolutely. That's what's up, man. Well, like I said, definitely good to have you on, and cool to obviously hear your story. I know it's a similar thing with me and Trav, just being able to connect, and had him on. I had Trav on a couple times to this live stream I was doing, and people noticed the vibe, and that was almost what 9 months ago now, or something like that.
Good Lord, yeah, a long time ago.
Crazy, but just to see everything that has done, and when you have genuine connection, like I know you do with Juan, and, it just makes it easier, and people like to vibe with it. So it's been great to see even your podcast, how much it's grown since I was even on. So congrats to you for real, bro.
Oh, thanks, man. I know it's not Josh Pate. You put me on the worst spot, man.
Gotta follow up Josh.
Yeah, I know, man. Can't do that. I should be storm chasing right now.
Full disclaimer to everybody in the comments. To be fair, I asked Rob to come on like 3 weeks ago, and I said, "Look, here's the day I'm looking at," and I got the idea to reach out to Josh, and I didn't know when, but he said his schedule is limited, so we said last Wednesday. So to be fair, I didn't mean pushy like that, dog, but it's all right. Like you said, when you get Josh paid on, you get him on.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. Trust me, I know how it goes. Business is business.
So before we get into anything Georgia specific, because I know I have a couple questions, and Trav, I'm not sure if you do as well. I thought I wanted to talk about a general topic that we can all kind of dive in on. Obviously, you guys have seen a lot of the stuff that's gone on with NIL the last week. I know there's reports of recently, I think today, of the D1 committee or whatever meeting talking about the limitations on how many players you can have. And that is just, I saw somebody saying it's like adding gas to an already crazy fire. NIL is kind of like the Wild Wild West right now. There's been rumors about them coming down on collectives. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Trav, I know you're well versed in NIL. Rob, we've talked about it before as well. So you guys are two opinions I respect on this. Rob, I'll go to you first, and then Trav, you can kind of finish us off. What do you feel about NIL right now in the landscape of college football?
Well, for one, I think you're going down a slippery slope, and you're going down it pretty fast. For it to be this new, and you're already seeing this, this task force per se, right? Like, it just shows you that the NCAA just wasn't ready, right? They thought they were ready, they were not ready, or they just didn't care and just made it happen and say figure it out. Right? We don't know. I would probably prefer the latter with how well the NCAA's handled everything else. But you look at the situations where now it's basically it has this feeling of pay to play, and I don't think that's what the intent initially was supposed to be. Right? It's what we were told not to be. So you sit there, you start to see this, right? We have Tennessee, in my opinion, paying $8 million, right, for a specific unnamed player. Not going to name them. Y'all kind of put the dots together. You get what I'm talking about. This whole Addison thing, right? That's the most recent situation where it just screams like tampering and things like this. But what's the NCAA doing? They're not really doing much of anything, right? So it's going downhill very fast. You've had coaches take advantage of it. I'm not going to speak on who I'm talking about, but you've also got situations where some of these coaches, are adamantly opposed to it, and I understand where that's coming from. So I see both sides, right? If nothing's going to happen to you, get away with it, right? Go for it. But I also can understand it's about to ruin college sports if you're not careful, and something's got to be done. And what they're trying to do, let's hope that it works and corrects this thing out. Ultimately, though, I do think that it'll correct itself. Just somebody's got to regulate it. Somebody has to regulate it.
Yeah. Trav?
Yeah, I think the current state, you're looking at kind of two lanes, right? On one lane, you've got true NIL, which, of course, is name, image, likeness, what Supreme Court said athletes should be able to monetize their name, image, and likeness, and they own that. The university doesn't own that. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but, what is one single autograph worth to whoever, right? With some big donor, right? If I'm a 5-star quarterback and I write my name on a napkin and I hand that to a booster and he hands me $5 million, who's to say that my autograph isn't worth that? It's like art at some point, right? Like, what is art worth, right? It's however much somebody's willing to pay for it, right? So determining value is always going to be the toughest part of NIL. Now, obviously, on the other side of that, on the other lane, is obviously your pay for play model. That is what we're kind of seeing play out now. And I do think, obviously, things are going to be reined in a bit because, let's be honest, a lot of these people that are big college football fans that, they're talking about getting Congress involved and this, that, and the other, they all went to college somewhere. They all didn't go to USC. They all didn't go to Tennessee. They didn't all go to Texas A&M. So, they're going to rein this thing in. There's no doubt, especially on the collective side, because I don't think while I do think it is important for kids to get paid, just specifically to the rule of NIL, which obviously every kid's brand is worth different amounts. I just think that's kind of the collectives kind of go against it. I understand that they're important because everybody's doing them. I want kids to get paid, but I could see where people would come down on that because it's not really in the spirit of the rule. Here's one thing I do know: all these cats that are paying these big bucks, they didn't make all that money making poor investments. They didn't make all that money making investments where there's zero ROI. They didn't make those investments and turn around and say, you know what, give it, you know, 10 years, they're looking at doubling their money, tripling their money, something like that. These are not people that are unreasonable. These are not people that, don't, that make irrational decisions with their money. So here's what I'm interested in. Say a $5 million quarterback goes somewhere and all of a sudden he underperforms. or maybe he gets hurt, or maybe he gets benched. What does that high dollar booster say? Well, I want some of that money back, or I'll just go buy another quarterback. I'll go do this. And that's the thing. The places that we're seeing these things happen, specifically, LA or Austin or Miami, I've made this point again and again. If those places already have poor culture, and then you stick a bunch of 18-year-olds there that are millionaires, what is an 18-year-old going to do with $1 million in LA? Do you think he's gonna buy a better trapper keeper? You think
he's going to diversify?
You think he's going to make sure that he can afford the best tutor? Do you think? No, absolutely not. What do you think the kid's going to do in Austin? What do you think the kid's going to do in Miami? That's the thing. You are already taking culture that struggles with distraction. That's what it's been. You look at the lack of development from these programs. Miami has one double-digit win season in its last 18 years. Since it joined the ACC 18 years ago, one 10-win season. We know Texas and USC are both coming off losing seasons. These places are rife with talent. I mean, if somebody locked in the state of Florida, they'd have the best roster in the country every year, but nobody can seem to do it. California has kids leaving all the time. Texas has kids leaving all the time just because there's so many of them. But you add already what is poor culture and a culture of distraction. I mean, a Texas player came out and said it. These guys are too worried about, chasing women on 6th Street than they are focusing on, getting a winning culture. Now you just gave a bunch of those guys money. So I've always felt that money. I've always felt that money almost makes you a caricature of yourself, right? If you are philanthropic by nature, if you want to help people, if you're generally responsible, well, you give that person $10 million and you're pretty sure they're not going to go to Vegas and blow it, in a weekend, right? So it's that's kind of the culture model. So when you extrapolate that out to a whole locker room, right? So instead of having, that one person that you got to try, okay, you do well with your money. Now a whole locker room that's got bad culture, that's just going to spiral, man. So that's the thing. You're going to have these guys, these wealthy guys that are buying these players, and it's not going to translate to wins. It's not going to translate to Heisman. It's not going to translate to NFL earnings, anything like that. And they're going to turn around and say, why am I giving these guys money? What have they done? What have they earned? So that's where I think it's I think we're going to see that act first, because let's be completely honest, without getting political, I think all three sides of the aisle, if you will, can say government isn't efficient in doing anything. So if we are waiting for the government to step in and say, hey, Congress comes in, or the NCAA, which has been a rudderless ship for decades now, if we're counting on them to do something, it's not going to be done quickly. So it has to be a situation where it almost corrects itself by people going, why the heck did I pay $5 million for this quarterback that turns out he's no good? Why did I pay? And then that money's going to dry up real quick. I mean, Texas millionaires have to be tired of paying buyouts for coaches. They have to. I mean, that's like, you eventually you're like, why am I? Stop asking me for money. Like, just do better. My money's not helping anything. My money, it may be making it worse. So those are some of my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. Both of you guys made great and solid points. And on the Texas tilt, like, a lot of you guys that follow the show know this, and Trav knows this because he's seen me get into way too many Twitter spats with Texas fans since he's known me. But last summer, I made a video about Texas and NIL and why, because essentially, Rob, what they were doing is they're boasting on Twitter about the money that they have, everything they're going to be able to give to these players, the opportunities they're going to have in Austin, whatever. And I said, look, that may be well and true. One, you guys have hardly ever struggled in recruiting anyways. Like it's not like you're gonna get that much better. You can jump from maybe 5 to 1, but they've generally had at worst a top 10 and many times a top 5 class.
They've always had more talent than the team they've played.
Always.
What's your JP? What you just told me? It sounds exactly what my recruiter told me when I joined the military. Hey, you can travel the world. No, you're not. You're deploying. That's what you're doing. It's false promises, man.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it's false promises to 100%, but I'm just saying, like, it all sounds greener until you get there, man. That's all I'm saying about that.
Yeah, and essentially what I said was, look, you can say all this. Eventually, if you guys don't get your culture figured out and you don't start winning and putting people in the league, it's not going to matter eventually.
Don't bring up the draft with Texas right now. Don't bring it up to them right now.
That's what I'm saying. Like if you continue to be what you were, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at people. They're going to be like, okay, well, that's chump change compared to like if I go to, just in the conference in Oklahoma, or now you look out in the landscape, or like Alabama who constantly puts people in the league, or like you guys who just put 15 guys in the league, right? Like they're going to go places like that where they know they can get developed and know that, hey, I'm going to be able to make so much more money in the NFL because of what I did at this school and because I got developed than that chump change you were throwing at me when I was 17 or 18 years old. And I got railroaded. Like I had people telling me, like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're so stupid. We have all this money, blah, 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 blah. Like they're talking like it's daddy's money because like it's not your money. You don't like you're not at the school.
You ain't buying that. You ain't buying that little car, nah.
Exactly.
Now, I'll tell you one thing though, JP, and I'm going to throw a little bit of a statistic here. What you just spoke is 100% accurate. I'll tell you why. NFL is greater than NIL. Georgia's 5 first-round draft picks, contract money-wise, $149 million. $41 million for Trayvon at number 1 overall. Tell me an NIL deal you're going to see $41 million. Most of that guaranteed, by the way. When you going to see it? When is the NIL deal going to be that way? I'll wait.
Thanks.
Just saying. Even Lewis seen at 32. Obviously not 41, but he still made 7 figures, about 10 million. So I'll wait. You show me. I mean, listen, they're getting close to that, but you ain't gonna see nothing 41 million. You ain't seeing that.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind if you're a recruit. NFL greater than NIL. Just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. So I had a question for you, Rob, about this year. Just obviously. We know you guys, you won the Natty, and I know I talked to you before. You have a good mindset. You're already focused on next year. You're done. You're done for the most part. Shit talking unless somebody is absolutely up here in your face about it, which they're nuts if they are. But 40 years, right? As Georgia
41,
fans,
41, yep.
41 for a national championship. Obviously, we're in our own little drought of 21 at this point. What was it like? Just take us through the experience of finally winning a national championship after that long. Where were you at when the clock hit zeros?
Well, I mean, I was in my house, but I didn't know how to react, honestly. It was just kind of like, is this real? Like, is this real? Because I mean, me being my age, like that was before my lifetime, you know what I mean? So like, as long and listen, obviously everybody remembers of us how we got to the national title and the first time, right? Had it right there and got it pulled away from you. To be able to sit there and kind of do some of the same, right, with Ringo's pick 6, made me I screamed like a little schoolgirl. Like, I ain't gonna lie. Like, no shame in that. Yeah. But honestly, and then honestly for for about a week or so, it didn't even feel real. Like you just, I guess it was just one of those things where like, it just didn't feel real. And then it finally set in. I was like, all right, like a couple weeks later, all right, it's time. Like nobody's going to keep sitting here and just want to hear it. So, for me, it's like, all right, let's see what's going on and look at next year and go from there.
Absolutely. Trav, did you have any questions for Rob yourself?
Not any specific ones to,
I see Sean does. Not any
to to the points about Georgia, my biggest question would be, we need somebody to lay out. Obviously, you said y'all like to shit on Florida and Auburn and those. We need to know what allies in the SEC. The enemy of the enemy is my friend. We need to know who needs to shit on who. So when it's leading up to game week, we can kind of rally some fans with us. Being new to the SEC, we got to make some new friends.
Well, I mean, if you're looking from a Georgia standpoint, right? Obviously, y'all don't have y'all listen. Y'all did with Baker was in there. Y'all went to Neyland.
Oh yeah.
So y'all know a little bit about Tennessee. Tennessee never rubbed me the right way after Nick Chubb's injury. It's just something about that fan base, man. Like, you want to keep cheering about an injury like that. It's just like, at that point, I lose respect for that. I mean, Auburn is just Auburn, man. I hate Florida and I hate Auburn, but at least I respect Florida. I do not respect Auburn. Just something about them just rubs me the wrong way. Like, you can't figure out if you an eagle or a tiger. Which one are you? Like, which one are you? I don't know. And it's been like that forever. But then you look at the stadium, man. There's been some heartbreak at Jordan here. Get it right for when y'all join the SEC. Jordan is what they say it. Okay, it's spelled Jordan. Yeah, call it Jordan here just to piss them off. But listen, it's crazy if you think back to the 2013 season, right? When Georgia and Bama felt the wrath of this. Prayer and Jordan Hare, we were up fourth quarter, Hail Mary. Our guys collide into each other.
Yep.
Ball goes into the air. He runs it in for 6, and it just ends the game. 2 weeks later, kick 6. Everybody remembers that. So I swear, I think it's built on a damn voodoo graveyard, man. I can't be honest if I'm being honest. But yeah, I think you look at those guys. I mean, Florida's in this state, right? Florida with Dan Mullen was absolutely abysmal toward the end of his, coaching tenure, I guess you could say. And listen, I understand they got a lot of hope right now with Napier and everything come and what he's doing, trying to, readjust the culture and stuff like that. But at this point, like, you still Florida. Like, you got to beat us first. Like, I know they beat us recently in like 2020, but outside of that, like, you got to do it. And I mean, the cocktail party is a fun time, right? But, obviously everybody wants to look at Bama, but honestly, if you're looking at that situation, I think that's only kind of Georgia to handle for right now. I'm not saying that the others can't, but, I would always say it's always fun to shit on Auburn. But you'll see their boosters can't get their heads out of their asses enough to make right decision. So you'll see.
Yeah, we're used to that with Texas, so that's good.
There you go. Look at that. There you go. There you go.
Let's go to the chat. We got a lot of questions in the chat for Rob.
We do have a lot of questions in the chat. We'll throw up the one you wanted from Sean, Rob.
No.
You wouldn't find anybody out of College Station that said yes.
Listen, I'm not saying they can't do it. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
Because what you did right now, listen, and I understand, right? And I went on a rant about this on my show, but 8 5-stars, awesome. Good for y'all. And if you use an NIL, great. But when Jimbo doubled down on it, when NIL was not a factor at all, you basically insulted everybody's intelligence in the country outside of College Station. Like, we know that because, listen, prior to that, it was 2 5-stars at max. And then as NIL opens up, you get to 8.
Yeah, often 8 and 4 seasons.
Yeah, listen, like I said, I'm not knocking, right? I'm not knocking these kids, right? They do what they got to do. But you just set a time bomb. You basically just set off the time bomb for 3 years. First off, you got to keep all those kids there because you loaded the 5-stars up with D-line.
Yeah.
But now you got to keep them there. And now you got to win it all. He's getting a fully guaranteed contract. They want a natty with that. And the fact that you just dropped that class, that just sped it up quite a bit. So I just don't see him getting past Bama so long as Nick's there. I know they won last year, but it just didn't feel like they actually won the game. More so they won. Bama lost it.
They were won, but they were fresh off a loss to Mississippi State. They beat Colorado 10-7. Yeah. I mean, it's just like that. That's an aberration. And
like, the quarterback situation is their problem.
Like it has been. Mon's nothing. He got drafted to my poor Vikings, and
at least you got Lewis C. Hey, you got Lewis C. and take care of him.
Yeah, well,
And you got Booth, by the way, in the second round.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of both of those guys. I just wish we if we were to take any quarterback over the last couple of years, I don't know why it had to be that damn Kellen Mond. But my thing with A&M is if don't apologize for playing by the rules. You say NIL's in the rules now? Cool. Say, yep. Sorry y'all are poor, but we bought a bunch of players. The fact that Jimbo's going to sit up there, and I'm surprised we made it. I think we made it this far into the pod without mentioning it, but it's very similar to Lincoln Riley saying that he made that decision in 12 hours. Like we've it's been reported that they were starting to talk to him in September. Other coaches, players have all talked about how those specific him and Simmons and Clark were all acting really weird the week of the OSU game. Calcaterra said that. There's talks of Caitlin and Alex Grinch's wife going out and looking at houses. We have so much evidence, and he continues to get on TV and say, "Yep, I just 12 hours. I just took a little nap, called him back, and made that decision." Like nothing makes me angrier than people just insulting the intelligence of an entire college football fanhood, not just OU, but the nation. I mean, anybody who listened to that interview. So he's willing to say that, which is obviously a lie. And he could just say, you know what, I've been talking to him for a while. I didn't want it to become a distraction with the team, so I didn't want to touch on it. But I think it's, after a lot of thought, I would have respected him so much more if he actually admitted to that. But Jimbo's doing the same thing. Jimbo's saying it's disrespectful to me and my coaches that work their butts off to recruit these players.
I ain't hard to find.
These guys, yep, these guys work their butt off in recruiting, and it's disrespectful to them to think that anything besides their own recruiting talents and what we've got going down in here in A&M is what sold them. I'm like, dude, just get up there and be honest. NIL comes, to your point, NIL comes, and a team that went 8-4 wins the best recruiting class of all time. Why? Because people just believe that A&M is going to do something that they've literally never done.
That is correct.
That doesn't make any sense. So it's like, just be honest, y'all. I don't get why people want to insult our intelligence that much. How pompous can you be?
Trav, in that same press conference, my man did some stuff that a coach should never do. My man was telling where the bodies were. Think about that. If you listen to that whole thing, he broke it down. He was giving everything away. You be that defensive and start doing that kind of thing right there, that screams you're doing stuff. But it's illegal. What are you doing that's not legal? Or is at that point? My question. Are you doing something you shouldn't be?
If you're that defensive, and I get, you're trying to back up your coaches and say, no, I believe in you as a recruiter. Dude, I could walk into a 17-year-old's living room with $50,000 cash, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 cash in a duffel bag and say, hey, do you want to come play football for me? And when they got done looking up from the cash, they said, yes. Where are you from again? It wouldn't matter. They'd already agreed to it. You just got to fill out the right paperwork and get the moving truck going the right way.
I mean, show them the brisket, fam. That's all I'm going to say. That'll get them committing.
Oh.
Sorry, guys.
Here's another one for you. What's the EGA running back room look like for next year?
All right. As it always does, this is the question, as the answer. Drew, to your point, though, it's really a coin toss to see who's going to be the actual starter. I'm expecting against Oregon, probably the first toss will be first handoff will probably be to Kendall. But Kenny McIntosh is right there. It's like a 1A, 1B. It's kind of similar to what you saw with Zeus and Cook last year. And then outside of that, you still got Dejon Edwards, which in my opinion is vastly underrated. I'm expecting him to be the third guy. And then you've got two freshmen, Branson Robinson, which he makes grown men look weak. And then Andrew Paul out of Texas that kind of came on late in the recruiting game for the cycle because Oregon had flipped one of our commits, Jordan James. So pick up Andrew Paul. So you're looking at those five guys. But I'm telling you right now, in my opinion, I think this running back class is going to be a little bit more deadly. The running back room will be just based off of the uncertainty that those guys give. give off, especially Kenny McIntosh, because Kenny can really do it all at a high level, especially out of the backfield, receiving passes. Kind of, I wouldn't say as good as James Cook was last year, but I mean, if you're Michigan, he can score touchdowns via pass as well. So you add that uncertainty, right? I think opposing defenses are going to look at it like, everybody expects Kendall to kind of be the bruiser type, which he is, but at G Day he caught a 32-yard touchdown pass and made it look easy down the field. So it's one of those things where if you get him into space, watch out. But then you obviously, like I said, Kenny McIntosh, just literally a multi-tool, and it's effective in all categories of the game. But I feel pretty confident in the running back game. It's Georgia, guys. You know how it is. Like RBU, it is what it is.
Did we just lose JP?
Oh, no. I think we did for a second. He might be back.
That's strange. Yeah, I think, we're always going to think running game when it comes to Georgia and obviously defense. How are you feeling about the quarterback position? I mean, it was one of those things where the defense was historically good last year. Obviously, an insane amount of NFL talent on that roster, on that defense specifically. It got to a situation where it's like, could you throw anybody back there and win a national title? I mean, obviously Stetson had his moments. JT Daniels got out of there. We haven't seen great quarterback play from Georgia in a minute. I mean, when you look at I'm talking like Heisman level.
Like you look at Aaron Murray, it's not Aaron Murray type at all.
No. That's what I'm curious about is, are we close to Georgia having that type of quarterback, or is it just, hey, we know this works. We're gonna be the best defense in the country, and we'll run the ball. And now that we know that it's won a national title, we'll just go do it again.
Well, I mean, I think you look at what happened last year. It's going to be different, right? Like you said, you lose a plethora of guys, all different levels, right? So, there is a hole in the defense, but the key thing for Georgia fans, and really anybody needs to understand this, is there were backups that were playing starter quality reps and quality minutes, and especially in, honestly, our bigger games, all season for that matter. Everybody looks at the defense, and that's fair. But there were situations where the game was completely blown out, right? We had blown the team out like Kentucky. And this was an example here. 7 seconds left. They're at the goal line, and our starters are playing. Literally, our number ones like N'Kobe and Jordan Davis. And it was just, there was a chip on their shoulder that they just wanted to prove. But you still have guys coming back on the defense. You look at Jalen Carter, probably the unanimous first-round pick. Keely Ringo, obviously. You've got Nolan Smith decided to make a big return. That was huge. Robert Bill, William Poole, Chris Smith, Tyke Smith. So we're getting several key pieces that were hurt last year that decided to make this comeback. I'm not going to say it's the same energy that we saw when Devontae and Jordan Davis made their comeback, and James and Zeus, all this. But there's some key pieces coming back, and that's really important for that defense as they get especially younger linebackers, right? You just lost all of our starting linebackers. So you've got guys like Pop Johnson, Jonathan Dumas-Johnson, Xavier Sori, like Robert Bill can guard and be on the outside or whatever. And then obviously with the incoming freshman class, let them get acclimated. Listen, Michael Williams is going to be a dude, in my opinion. And Marvin Jones Jr., the same off the edge. It's going to be insane. But then you talk about the offense, Trav. The thing about it is this is, from the quarterback position, listen, there's a lot of Georgia fans that want Carson Beck, and I understand it. I do. But then I question, I'm like, he did lead us to the title, right? I can't say N'Kobe Dean threw a touchdown pass to Adonai Mitchell. I can't say that. That's Stetson Bennett, right? I want the best player to win, right? It shouldn't, in my opinion, it's not a quarterback competition more so than it is multiple quarterbacks putting you in the position to win games. With all the weapons that we've got on offense, most of our offensive line coming back, that's all important. I don't even think I need to speak on how deep our tight end room is. But it's more than just that too. Obviously losing Jermaine Burton is kind of a sting, especially going to Bama. But you look at, like I said, A.D. Mitchell was a freshman. Lad McConkey was, I think, a redshirt freshman. So a lot of our guys that made key impact plays are going to be coming back as those weapons for Stetson or for Carson or whatever the case may be. So I think, honestly, it might be a narrative where our offense helps lead us to where we need to be while the defense gets their feet replanted, if you want to say.
Yeah, I think we're seeing something similar. I say similar. We're seeing it on a much lower level from a talent perspective. But when we talk about our conference, our current conference, not our future conference, but with OSU, um, had a lot of success on defense last year. They, could minimize Spencer Sanders' mistakes or at least mask them a little bit. Because they were a top 5 unit throughout basically the whole year on defense. Now they lose their defensive coordinator to the other OSU, the real OSU, as some would say, the Ohio State University. So he's gone. You lose a ton of people off that defense because they were just older. A lot of them came back for their COVID year. They've been playing together a long time. That's why they've been successful. But now it seems like with a new defensive coordinator coming over, I believe from Auburn, and now you've got a bunch of new guys in positions. It does seem like they're going to have to rely on the offense early as well. What's great about OU is we have no damn clue who's going to be relied on early because it's new installs on both sides. Obviously, you're going to look to Venables as the head coach and one of the best defensive minds in the game, proven to be one of the best defensive minds in the game. And you're going to say, okay, we lean on the defense. But with Jeff Lebby coming over and having his handpicked quarterback come with him and Dylan Gabriel, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see who the stronger side of the ball is out of the gate. I think defensively, it typically takes longer to install because offensively, traditionally at least, you need to install your system. You need to install your plays. You need to install your offense, right? Well, your defense, not only do you have to install that, you have to install a culture in a defense. You have to install a mindset in a defense that maybe the offense doesn't rely on as much um, from that kind of cultural install perspective. So it'll be interesting to watch kind of who gets off to um, the quicker first step. I do think our running back room, as we saw Javante Barnes in the spring game, he's going to be a star. I wouldn't be shocked to see a true freshman leading us in rushing this year. But Eric Gray looks great. Didn't get a lot of run. Didn't really need to get a lot of run in the game. Tawi Walker, I believe, is your third string, and then Marcus Major will be fourth. Lebby had 3 running backs and the quarterback all have over 100 carries last year in the Ole Miss offense. So this is an offense where they like to score from far early, and then they like to lean on you with the running backs heavily with kind of a deep running back room in the second half. So it ought to be interesting. And this is kind of one of those years for DeMarco Murray. It's all right. You got a lot of guys back there. Let's see what you can do in a new system and new play caller and things like that. If he can knock some out of the park and have some of those guys in the kind of national spotlight of running backs, then I think DeMarco will step it up even further with his recruiting.
Absolutely. And to both of your points, I think like you said, Trav, the larger theme of the conversation we just had was, what does it take to win a national championship? Obviously, people can look at the quarterbacks and that you need an elite quarterback. And I was on our buddy Ty around the table sports live stream last week, and Nino he's a Texas fan. Nino's Corner. I don't know if any of y'all watch his stuff. Good guy, but he has some of that Texas fan logic. We were talking, and That's kind of a conversation I brought up because they were talking about Caleb Williams, and you lose Caleb Williams, are you really gonna be a better team losing Caleb Williams? Like, okay, like obviously anybody with eyes can say that Caleb Williams has more potential than Dylan Gabriel. That's not a bad thing to say. However, looking at the situation and being nuanced, can Dylan Gabriel in an offense he already knows, so that the install goes quicker, and around better receivers than he had at UCF, and better offense and defense in general, better school? Can he potentially lead OU to a better season than they had last year? I think unequivocally, absolutely. And then I said, you look in a larger stage, Stetson Bennett led Georgia to a national championship. Again, did they have one of the best defenses of the last 10 years? Yes, right? They sent a lot of people to the league. I'm not saying that wasn't a big part of it, but again, the quarterback position is, regardless of college football, regardless of the NFL, the most important position, right? Like if you don't have a solid quarterback back there, you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything.
Yeah,
So
we saw Stetson. We've seen Alabama win a myriad of titles with nobody excellent. No future real NFL guys
hmm,
under center. I do want to touch on one thing. It's funny we talk about Caleb, the kind of the Caleb Dillon dynamic and things like that. Like with Caleb, I always say this: it's like gambling, man. The worst thing that could ever happen to somebody that gambles for the first time is that they win and they win big. If you take in, $20 into the casino and you pull that lever and it spits out 1,000, then you will then think for the rest, at least until you lose a lot, that that's how it's supposed to go. Man, this was really easy. My first impression of this is I could be a professional gambler. All you have to do is go in and put a 20, and then you get 50 times your money right back. It's great. That's what Caleb did at the Texas game. He put up 50-50 ball after 50-50 ball, and OU came down with them. OU made miraculous plays, not taking anything away. Sometimes it just goes like that for you. So he gets this Paul Bunyan type status to him, and then he almost loses to Kansas, and then he loses to Baylor, and then he loses to OSU. There's there's something interesting. He's the hottest transfer on the market. Obviously big time guy, true freshman in the position, but he was 3-2 and nearly lost to Kansas. So Dylan Gabriel has never almost lost to Kansas. I'd like to point that out. But there is something to be said for we had a true freshman, tons of talent, sure. Um, teammates loved him, everything like that. But all the early returns on Dylan is they absolutely love this guy. They say he's a lot different than the guys that came before. He's extremely team oriented. Um, he's not a spotlight guy. He stayed home for spring break and worked with receivers, got extra time in on the offense, everything like that. Um, with him, and it's just experience. you know, 8,000 yards, 70 touchdowns, you know, career passer rating, I think 150, passer efficiency rating of 158. I think his lowest is like 157.8 or something like that. He's been wildly consistent. You know what you're getting, and you're getting it in this offense. So I absolutely think, Dylan's ceiling, at least in the college game, is right up there with anybody's.
no, I absolutely respect that take. I respect that take for sure. Because and like you said, being able to have the protection that he's had, and now have the athletes that he has, and he's already accustomed to this offense, I think can only go up from there. Rob, man, did you have any questions, Oklahoma wise at all, before we, and guys continue to put questions in the chat, or just any topics as well, as we are in the last couple of minutes of the show. Going to continue to roll on. But Rob, I want to give you the floor if you had any specific questions for us as Oklahoma fans.
Yeah, I think one I'm sitting here looking at, obviously a kind of a new regime, obviously in Oklahoma. And honestly, it's going to be a complete identity change, right? You look at flashy offense with no defense, so like literally you couldn't have went more polar opposite, right? So in your first year of the Big 12, obviously you look at Baylor with Aranda, right? And listen, one of the best defensive minds in the game in college football. Like, listen, it's typically around everybody's like, oh, it's Big 12. Nah, he prides himself in a defense, and there's no bones about it. You can tell.
Well, and just
Now,
one of the best coaches, I think. I
yeah,
mean, I would
and
top
he's
his
young.
defensive
He
mind.
is young too.
Yeah,
That's the scary part.
He is a great coach.
I know. I watching him at LSU and seeing those defenses, right, as a coordinator, I wondered how it translated to him being a head coach, and we're seeing that firsthand. And it's a seamless transition for the most part. I do think once he gets an offense, though, that's going to be absolutely scary. Yeah, but what are your thoughts on as a conference? Where if you're an Oklahoma fan, like how confident are you in being able to win the conference in year one?
I'm often called a sunshine pumper on Twitter, so take this as you will. But I expect us, just when you look at the schedule. I'm a big go down the list and point out the losses guy, and I don't think Venables seems like a guy that's going to get caught from behind as much, like Lincoln was. Having a better defense obviously helps that. And commitment to the run that Levy has shown has helped that as well. We have a favorable out-of-conference schedule this year. Obviously, Nebraska on the road will be a ruckus environment, but I just don't think they have it. I'm not a Scott Frost guy. And Casey being first year in the system, I'm just not sold on them. And then when you look at your toughest opponents in conference, you've obviously got Baylor and OSU being the representatives of the Big 12 and the Big 12 championship last year. So you get both of those at home. You get them late in the season, which means your new defense and your new offensive installs have a little bit of time to gel, and then you get to play those games at home. I think that's a big advantage that we didn't have last year, with an experienced quarterback as well. And then offense, or OSU obviously going under that kind of rebirth and handing the keys back to Spencer Sanders and saying, now please don't throw these keys to the opponent. But Baylor, I think it'll be Oklahoma and Baylor in the Big 12 championship. With Texas, I got to see it. I got to see it to believe it with Sark, man. I got to see it to believe it with that whole program. We've been hearing it for a decade, and we've just been getting the same result. And I do think, do you all remember, I forget what year it is, what year it was, but Alabama played Florida State. No, it wasn't Florida State. It was either Florida State or USC. Now I can't remember. But one of those two teams, I guess it doesn't matter. They're both red and gold and have been shitty for a decade. So
Facts.
So they played Bama in like the first game of the season, one of the non-conference games, and the opponent came out, holding
USC.
Yeah, came out and they were holding each other back and all this, that, and the other. And Alabama broke their whole program.
Skull fucked them bad.
Like, broke their whole program, and they had to rethink things. And it was their measuring stick, and they were like, well, we're not ready to compete. And it broke them. Literally, physically, it broke them because, I mean, at that level especially, playing Bama, the next week, you could still feel what it was like playing that Bama team. So I think Texas is going to get a dash of that. Will Anderson getting to go against that offensive line full of just puppies is going to be – I can't wait to watch that. I mean,
Travis, you forgot a name there. You forgot Dallas Carter.
Oh, of course. But I'm
sorry, Dallas Turner, my fault.
Yeah,
Dallas Turner. I was thinking Barrett Carter, my fault.
Yeah. So I think Will Anderson's just going to go insane that day. Somebody joked, I forget where I saw it, but I think it was one of the OUB writers, but it said Texas, instead of spending all their NIL money on recruiting, they should pay Will Anderson to skip that game. And maybe that might be a better use of some of their money.
It still won't matter. Will Anderson, it wouldn't matter. Like,
but Alabama coming off a year where they didn't win a title, and they've got, a great defense as always, and Quinn Ewers is going to be sitting back there without an offensive line in front of him. Basically, I mean, you can have all the cool, little toys you got, your Bijan, your Xaviers, all these, top end talent, but I mean, if you get out there and just get smacked by Bama and you lose by 35, I mean that has the you heard that thunder.
you gonna go storm chasing here, Trav?
Yeah, I thought about it. About to put the bucket hat on inside in case we spring a leak. So, anyways, if you get smacked down that early against Bama, that absolutely has an effect on the rest of your season. Just same as LSU and Texas when they played, and Texas, hung in that game. It gave them
sprungboard
confidence.
LSU that year, though. To be honest, that game springboarded LSU.
It did, but it also gave Texas confidence to be like, oh man, we can hang. So it gave Texas a whole new kind of measuring stick. If Bama comes in and just beats the brakes off them, then I mean they're not going to be limping into Red River. So I guess that's probably the longest answer you'll ever get when you say how do you think you'll finish? What odds do you give to win the Big 12 this year? I like Baylor and us in the title game, and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. I just see Baylor being a force so long as horrendous there, honestly. Like, just solely off of defense if need be. I mean, I know that the quarterback they had hit the portal. Bohannon, yeah. I don't know if that matters too much, but with his defense, I'm listening. He had a lot of guys drafted just off the secondary alone. It seemed like I think a receiver too, but you know what I mean. Like with the defense that he has, these guys playing it to me, it kind of reminded me. I was able to watch a little bit of one game with Baylor, and that secondary last year looked similar to what he had with LSU. Not saying like physical, like not like Louisiana freaks, okay, but like track speed and actually being able to cover and the linebackers were moving fast. That's the kind of things that can, to me, I think can generate success, right? I'm going to go back to it, but Georgia showed, right, in the modern era, right? Everybody wants to think you have to have historic offenses, right? You look at 2019 LSU, you look at 2020 Bama, right? Historic passing offense, historic offense. Georgia did it a little bit different, So I think you gave I ain't gonna say everybody, but you showed that the old school recipe, right? It's still able to do its thing. Listen, and I think I mentioned about those game managing quarterbacks at Bama. Maybe so, but guess what? Those guys won rings. They got rings on their fingers. So, Matt, you know what I mean? So
that's the thing. We've seen it done. I mean, we've seen it done multiple times, but the only caveat has to be, okay, you can win with kind of a game manager style, or we'll put it this way. You can win with a non-Heisman QB because game manager, I feel, is so derogatory, but not winning a Heisman, there's no shame in that. So,
yeah,
you can win with a quarterback that's not in the Heisman conversation, but you'd better have 9, 10 defensive NFL players. And deep, you better have NFL players throughout the roster. You better have 40 blue chips surrounding that quarterback, because that's the thing. It's you can get it done with those non-Heisman QB, but you look at the drafts and eventual NFL careers of a lot of the guys that were on those teams that weren't the quarterbacks. Whoo-wee.
Yep. I want to add this real fast. I see Sean said he wanted to see UGA Ohio State. No, you didn't. Georgia would have ran all over him. It would have been a boring game for you. Just saying. Just saying. Their run defense.
Ohio State was 2018 OU. That's all they were. They were
their run defense was abysmal. Like, I'm not knocking Oregon, right? Because we play them September 3rd. I'm not knocking them. But I will tell you this. Oregon wasn't expected to do shit in that game, especially at the Horseshoe, and they ran down their throats. It just bullied them in the trenches on the defensive line. Like, that defensive line got bullied.
Well, and I mean, the whole defense looked bad too.
It was weird.
I mean,
It was
Ohio
weird.
State, like I said,
It was
Ohio
weird.
State had a 2018 OU problem. CJ Stroud was lighting it up, but it just didn't matter.
Yep.
It didn't matter when your defense is that bad. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, but you look at like Sean saying that just wanted to see their offense. Listen, in that case, like if their offensive line could have, and listen, Ohio State had some dudes last year, right? But I think Paris Johnson Jr. is going to be a bona fide first round pick. That defensive line we had, guys, I'm just being honest. As crazy as it sounds, Jalen Carter is probably the best one out of them all, and he was a backup. Like Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, like Jalen Carter, like I said, he's, in my opinion, probably the best one out of them all. And like I said, he was a backup. That's the scary part. Like, I don't know how else to put it, but just freaky thinking about that.
Yeah. One more question for you. We'll make this an NFL one that's dear to a lot of OU fans' hearts. Drew has this question for you.
Okay. My thoughts are we talking about in college or NFL or what?
NFL.
Okay.
You can tell us college too to make us all feel good before you give us your NFL one.
I mean, I'll do that. Okay. So Travis brought it up. He put it on the plate. I got to swing. College at first, right? Like I like the story, right? Coming from, I think it was walk on, if I'm not mistaken. Texas Tech and everything like that, and then getting a shot at Oklahoma. Arrogant, cocky, backed it up. Just not against Georgia. This defense gave him up on that one, though. But you get what I mean. But that didn't take away from the fact that there were several memorable moments, not even, from a third-party side for me, right? You look at the Ohio State plant flag, beautiful. Kansas, beautiful. Like, I love that. Like, you want that energy, especially in college. That's where it matters. Moving to the pros and things like that. Listen, he took Cleveland, which was an absolute shit show, and actually made them relevant. Not that he had weapons, but he was more than serviceable with those guys. So what the situation is now, that's just Cleveland being stupid. I think he's a serviceable quarterback, but the perception is, with the whole at Cleveland, I just don't know what to make out of it. He could be a good quarterback, just where he goes. Right? I think like the Seattle Seahawks would be a good fit for him because he's not Russell Wilson, but he's got capabilities and tendencies, right? So if he goes to the right place, why wouldn't he be a good starting quarterback? He was hurt a lot too, so. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think, most OU fans feel that way. There's, for whatever reason, we get characterized as we think he's the best thing since sliced bread and is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL, which I don't think any true OU fan.
You'd be crazy to think that even if you did rock the Sooner Nation, yeah.
Right. Yeah, think that. But what our issue has been is just the slandering of him, not even just like Cleveland Browns fans, because whatever to them on Twitter, but even like in the media, like some people talk about him like he's trash. Like Darren Orlovsky and Louis Riddick seem to be the only guys on ESPN that will actually spit a little bit of truth. Like, just like you said, like he's been serviceable. He has a potential to be a pretty good quarterback, and he's shown flashes. He's been inconsistent. You could say that's due to having 4 offensive coordinators, obviously. And he was hurt last year. The year before, he took them to their first playoff win in 26 years, right? And
it's a generation of losing in Cleveland. He brought you into the playoffs.
Legit. And so all we said was give him some respect. Like, if you want to say Deshaun Watson's a better quarterback in the NFL, you can say that. That's true. I think that's obviously objective.
That's fair. That's fair.
Right.
Honestly,
yeah. But stop. Like they're acting like on the way out he was a bag of trash that didn't do anything in Cleveland, and we needed to get rid of him. And
well, there's 2 things. All right. You always have to wonder what everybody's motivation is, right? When you think when you take speech class, when you're reading up all this, it's like, all right, who's the audience? When you're taking literature class, who's the audience, right? From the author, what's the intended audience? So we'll first start with Cleveland fans. Cleveland fans just brought in a quarterback who did not play last year because he was basically kicked off the team, requested a trade. All these allegations come out. Dozens of women say that he sexually assaulted them. All this. He's find another He's finding masseuses outside of the facilities. Masseuses on Instagram. Going like even if it's not found that anything was done illegally, clearly this guy's got a problem, something, right? So Cleveland fans, if they make Baker out to be this loser, it distracts from Deshaun Watson. And I mean, you hardly hear Deshaun Watson's name anymore from Cleveland fans. You would think he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. If I had a top 5 quarterback in the league on the Vikings, I would never shut up about him. I would tweet about it all damn day. I'd be making videos. I'd be doing all kinds of stuff. But you don't even hear them talk about it because they're so busy stepping on Baker to make themselves feel better that now they have to root for a serial groper. So the other side is it's the same thing Colin Cowherd does. OU Twitter, for better or for worse, is highly, highly engaged. If you throw something out, we are piranhas. We have high engagement. We will make people famous. So that's the problem, is everybody knows, hey, if I shit on Baker, I'm going to do numbers because all these OU fans are going to jump on me. I'm going to call them all idiots, and I'm going to say they live in trailer parks, and I'm going to say, oh, amazing you have Wi-Fi or electricity or all this shit. And I'm going to make fun of them that Lincoln left you. I'm going to make fun of all this bullshit, right? And it's going to get us all riled up, and then we're just going to, ratio it to hell. But that person, I mean, we're seeing people change their opinions like midweek
overnight
on Baker. And it's like, wait, what? You were his biggest defender, and now you're putting out all this propaganda because you're liking the clicks. So if anybody's to blame, like I said, it's twofold. They're trying to distract from Deshaun Watson. They've got a top 5 player on the roster, and or top 5 quarterback that they just signed, and they're not even talking about him. And secondly, OU Twitter is just way too deep, and we make people famous because we won't shut the fuck up.
I have long since said, since the whole Lincoln Riley situation, that the first USC graphic posting a loss will be the most engaged tweet of all time. Just gonna leave that there this year. Just gonna say that. That's all I'm gonna say.
You're not wrong.
I mean, how many people are blocked is a question.
It's gonna be biblical, honestly, like that. Just to think about that, that's hilarious.
Yeah, Boondock Saints. It was a firefight.
We need Willem Dafoe to narrate it.
Yes.
Oh, don't do that, Morgan Freeman, please.
Willem Dafoe said it was a firefight.
I know that, but I'm just saying
we got to do that.
I love Morgan Freeman too. So
right, who doesn't?
Hey, Rob, bro, thanks for coming on, dog. It's been a blast, real fun. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. This was fun. I think we should do, and kind of mapping out the show on the fly without talking to JP first. But I think, JP, what do you think about when we do our preview shows from now on? We always bring somebody from the fan base that we'll be playing that week. Obviously, we'll have people on in the off season and whatnot, but it'd be fun to kind of get people's thoughts leading up to the game of somebody, because we didn't do that last year, really.
You're right.
I think that'd be a lot of fun.
No, I think
because this was cool talking about Georgia a little bit, and it'll be even more fun leading up to the game because
next year,
because it's just it's more fun to know, what kind of players to watch for. Man, Rob told me this.
I'll tell you what, while that works, I did this as well. And while we're talking show plans on live, right? When it comes to Texas, you might not want to bring anybody on there just because. I mean, you can, but I enjoyed an hour of sitting there pure shit talk.
No,
I don't think no fan would have wanted to come on my show for that period.
Kyle Umlang is the only one that we'll bring on because he's been on before.
Yeah,
it's a safe space.
There you go. There you go.
He spends more time shitting on Aggies than he does us, and I like anybody who shits on Aggies.
Fair point.
He's got a book. He literally published a book called 101 Aggie Facts. It's on Amazon. You should check it out.
Is it? Oh man, I gotta check it out.
It's hilarious, man.
It's hilarious.
JP, DM me the stuff so I can see it again.
I will. Hey, well, give everybody your info, bro. Your obviously your ads right there. But just say it and where to find you at when you do your podcast and everything. So
Yeah.
go ahead and check you out.
So if you're curious about Georgia, find me at the DGD podcast, Twitter, Instagram. More focused on Twitter, but DGDpodcast.com as well. Shows on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook every Monday and Friday. If something happens, obviously I tweet that out and let y'all know. But for the most part, Monday and Friday at noon, Eastern time, not Central, Eastern. Just me and Juan sit there and talk about whatever's coming up, basically. Especially during the season, it gets pretty intense. Especially when we talk outdoor cocktail party. I suggest you if you like rivalry and you like shit talk, I promise you would love that episode. I'm just gonna plug that in there. So. But other than that, though, at the DGD podcast, pretty on there a lot. So if you want to shoot some, talk with me, send me a DM, hit me up.
Absolutely. Well, we've enjoyed you being on the show, brother, and we'll definitely get you back on soon. And yeah, like Trav said, man, if we can.
Somebody said to get. Oh man, somebody said get Seti on for Texas, bro.
No.
Absolutely. That guy blocked for so long.
Man, I'm telling you what, Twitter Spaces is a whole different beast.
Yes.
I feel
Not
that.
only that, that's what. But hey, y'all stay tuned for next week. We're gonna have another guest on as well that I'll announce later. But y'all have a great night. Thanks for coming out with us. Boomer.
Boomer. See you guys.
Go Dogs.